We are live. Thank you for joining me for my thoughts on Helstrom, Season 1, Episode 1, Mother's Little Helpers. The episode is rated TVMA, so will this video be? There will be spoilers for the show, and pretty much, I might spoil pretty much anything from the MCU and adjacent, leading up to and including the episode. Yeah, I don't know. I am cautiously optimistic. I didn't think this was terrible, and yes, I have read. Some have said, oh, the first episode's good, but they don't. It doesn't keep being good throughout the entire season. And yes, I know when I say oh, season one, yeah, I know there's only one season. You don't have to tell me. And yeah, we are continuing my quest to cover basically everything MCU and or adjacent that I have access to at all. And I do think that this does some things that work. I'm not the first person to point out it's somewhat reminiscent of Constantine. I've only watched the movie. I haven't read any of those comics or watched the show. Based on Deus Deacon, it does sound like a great show. I wouldn't mind watching it at some point. I think that is that it for the over. I guess I could briefly. So I think yeah. Before I get into like scene by scene stuff, I think they do a pretty good job of setting up the what appears to be the recurring main cast and the core concept. Yeah, I want more of the Helstrom siblings, and I'm intrigued by the mystery. Who was the keeper keeping, and let's see. No, I think that pretty well covers the yeah, I appreciate them doing. At this point you have to, if you're gonna tell a story like this, this was a 2020 show, something like that. It was pretty recent. They know, okay, you gotta acknowledge, okay, I guess I should lay my cards on the table. I don't believe in the supernatural. I do think it makes for compelling media sometimes. So in these videos, I'm gonna try not to just shit all over it, smear feces on the walls like that kid who really needs to use bleach to scrub it all away. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, today we do know some of what has been dealt with by exorcisms historically is mental health. So they acknowledge, okay, sometimes you think that it's this thing, yeah, and yeah, they have the thing of, oh, it's like secret hidden. So if you don't know enough, then you just think, oh, these are mental health patients, but in reality, well, I guess, let's see, I'm slightly unclear on, I think most of them are, and it just, the I am not sure of her name, so I'm Mrs. Helstrom. She is actually demonically possessed. And yeah, that is the thing. If this stuff was real and you want to hide someone, yeah, hiding them, and saying, oh, they're was it like they're a risk, so don't let your guard down around them. Because most people would just perceive, like, if she's not throwing people against walls with her mind, yeah, she looks and sounds like she has mental health problems rather. I So far, I think they're doing a good job of balancing so basically the Hellstroms, you know they were abused as children, and the snarkasm and such is basically a defense mechanism. That's how they don't want to get too close to anyone, because last time they did, it hurt. And it's, yeah, you have to be careful not to the the mean comments and such can't be so like constant or so like harsh that we end up just being like, okay, I do not want to spend 10 fucking episodes with these people. They are unbearable. I'm not one of those people who say, oh, a character has to be likable. I prefer an interesting asshole. That's part of why, one of the things I really appreciate about David Cronenberg's work, for example. But we're gonna spend 10 episodes with the same characters. You gotta be careful. In a movie, you can push it further. Then yeah, this episode was like 50 minutes, so it's like almost 10 fucking hours. We gotta, if they're basically co-leads, yeah. And at the same time, also not making it. You also don't want the audience to like tune off or turn out. Turn off. Tune out, turn off. I should not have tried to use it. Yeah. Drop in. Yeah. I think you know where I'm going with the you know what? You have the words, you make them a sentence. You don't want to have the child abuse flashback be so or the things that when Mrs. Helstrom says, I tried to drink so much that I killed you in the womb, if you push that shit too far, I don't think they did here. I don't know yet if they do later in this is the only episode I've watched so far of the show. You have to be careful that you don't push it so far that the audience is just like, nope, pass, this is too much, this is just, because again, 10 hours, we can't, it's important that the audience, whenever we see, from once we've been told child abuse, every time we look at the Helstrom siblings' faces, it's like, oh, it's because of the child abuse. But also not like, this is just too, we're not supposed to think this is just too much. I no, I'm gonna go watch something else. Maybe pet videos on Reddit or something. Like, yeah. I think that might cover the the drip feed of information for the mystery. I think is working well so far. And yeah, I genuinely like I have an idea or two, but yeah, it's little enough that I feel like, okay, they can get a bunch of episodes out of this. I have heard that the pacing of this one is a little like, at times at least, some of the Marvel Netflix shows, which, yeah, some of these, like, it would have been great if they didn't have to do quite as many episodes, or if maybe just, like, if sometimes we can just have an episode that isn't the central plot, but is, like, adjacent to it, so we can get some, but, from what I hear, later in this season, there is some, what's it called again? The sometimes they'll just kind of, the wheels will be spinning. We're not really getting anywhere, kind of thing. And I thought the horror mostly worked. Yeah, I thought the self awareness about I already mentioned about the exorcisms stuff. I already mentioned that the thing about realizing, okay, a lot of exorcisms, it was really, that's the thing, like, it's trying to have its cake and eat it too, and say, no, demons are real, but for a while you couldn't really tell the difference, between, which, like, also, they're talking about, oh, Gabrielle is so, so new. Sorry, Sister Gabrielle, do you have to, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to a woman here. I forget if you are supposed to say sister, even if you don't believe. I know that if you do believe, you're supposed to address a nun by sister and then the name if you know it. But yeah, let's see. Yes, Gabrielle, oh, she's new, so she can't tell the difference between a con and an actual demon. Well, does that imply that, like, historically, as long as you got like a priest that had, you know, enough experience, they would their exorcisms were always of demons and not like mental. I'm not gonna get into, but just it has a very unpleasant history. People have died because of them being exorcised, and you look at what like actual professionals have looked at the symptoms described that was thought of as reason for exorcism, and concluded no, this person had a mental illness. It might have been this or that. Um, yeah, I think if you're not already, watch Taylor Tomlinson. She talks, the crowd confessions. I think there's some really funny stuff about growing up with very conservative parents and environment in general. I think that covers the. I also felt like they did a good job of, like I had heard this. This is. Well, let's see. I guess it's not the first horror show that Marvel recently did, because technically, and to be clear, I'm talking about like since Disney got the MCU. Those are the I haven't watched. I'm aware that there's at least some. Let's see, Hulk got a TV series, for example. Haven't watched that. I'm not like opposed to it, but just haven't. But yeah, Cloak and Dagger did have some horror as well. But this does go at least a little bit harder than that show did most of the time. There's definitely some. Let's see. In part with how much blood and violence it shows, and like actual gore, and also some of like the concepts. Like there was some really, especially near the end. Again, I am spoiling. Near the end of Cloak and Dagger season 2, with the guy who could like mind control and was like stealing their life essence. Like, Jesus Christ, that was really dark. But then here, you have a guy being fucking eaten by a demon corpse thing. Like, it's just in a different sort of way. The violence did not get as brutal and visceral on that show. That's not me criticizing that. I am quite fond of that show. Well, yeah, I really appreciate. I think I'm gonna talk more about that in other videos as well. But I really appreciate the way that Disney Marvel. I know some people say, oh, they're just throwing crap at the walls. I don't know. I think so far the only one that I just genuinely dislike is what's it called again? Inhumans. Not the concept, not the ones on Agents of Shield, but the standalone miniseries. Yeah, that one. Not a fan. But other than that, yeah, all of these, I really think they've had some, at least some really interesting and worthwhile stuff. And I do kind of like that they did just like try a different. They were appealing to. I guess in some ways they still are with the Disney Plus stuff, but there's a distinction, because most of the Disney Plus stuff is canon, and when they occasionally do something that sort of technically is it canon, it's like oh, it's other parts of the multiverse or something, but with these, like the canonicity, like this one mentions Roxxon, and like I don't think it's in the same universe as Cloak and Dagger. I think there's like rights, like Disney Marvel kind of licensed these out to just different companies, corporations to but yeah, I think that yes, let's get into the scene by scene. So, um, yeah, good visual storytelling there at the start with the camera pans across. We see her at the keyboard, and then we see the there's a what's it called? Medical doctor, physician, something like that. PhD. We see her name. We see the access card, which is of course the one that Sister Gabrielle uses later to access Ms. Helstrom. We see the let's see. There was a picture. She yeah. Um, she's there, and there's like children smiling, and so we get, okay, that's something that there's a lot of pieces of media that would have all of that as like narration, not narration, voice, verbal exposition. Jesus. uh yes, and I quite appreciate it, because you could see like they could be walking down the hallway. Yeah, you could have like Damon, walking down and saying, "Ah, Sister Julie Hastings, the woman who raised me, medical doctor, nun, beloved by children, to what do I owe the pleasure?" And it would be like, "Oh, stop." It's a lot of media like that. So I really appreciate it. I think they've, in this episode, done a pretty good job of not having too much exposition. There is some, Anna confronting the serial killer, but it was not like egregious, and they chose to show, she doesn't say you are strangling women. She says you steal women's hope, and then we see that he's strangling a woman. And obviously, as soon as you show a woman, being hurt by a man, or not just hurt, harmed, I mean, yeah, you don't want to have too much of that. I so far think they're doing a good job of just, there was just enough that we understood what was happening, but it didn't end up feeling exploitative, gratuitous. And yeah, so yeah, the camera's panning across, and we see her typing, and not long after we see the screen, and like, I'm trying not to be a pedant, I feel like she was typing for longer than the amount of text that we end up seeing on the screen. But I guess it's possible, like, we don't watch her every second. It's possible that she typed up one email, sent it, and then started a new one. I can work with that. And yeah, suddenly it just starts typing on its own, which is a neat practical effect. I quite appreciate that, because it's one of those things, like, it's not like impossible to it's like I'm thinking radio control animatronic kind of thing, to rig up a keyboard like that, but it's effective. It works, because we're like, nope, you are a keyboard, you work for me, not the other way around. And for a while we don't see what it types, and she runs off, and then it shows the screen, which was also, it's just enough that, like, we're like, oh, what's on the screen? I want to see what's on the screen. But also not so long that it's like, okay, fine, whatever, I don't care what's on the screen anymore. And yeah, it just keeps typing. All work and no play makes Trap a dull boy. And Trap does take the constructive criticism fairly well, for at least for a while. But no, seriously, types no mercy. And yeah, that is a creepy thing. That's again, yeah, it's wonderfully creepy, and it's just vague enough. Yeah, yes, it's vague enough that we don't know what the demon is planning. We just know it is like, it might as well be saying, get fucked. You have lost. But no mercy is a bit more. It feels like something it would have typed 1,000 years ago as well, if keyboards had been around back then. And yeah, it no, I guess I've made my point about the keyboard. Yes, so yeah, she runs, and there's a thing about the we don't know how they got out, and there's blood under the door. Very very nicely, sort of, because it's one of those things. There's some pieces of media where they would have shown the patients breaking out and killing. That wouldn't necessarily have been quite as scary, but just seeing blood under a door, that's, yeah, it's a you immediately, it's one of those things that I love about horror, where like we kind of want to see where the blood came from, but we're also like, oh, please don't show, that sort of, you know yeah, I'm very hardened by horror by now. It's only real life violence that bothers me, but I thought they did a good job there, and we do also see, the doors open, and we see the guard having been killed. I think, yeah, and just, we don't go to Mrs. Hellstrom's room yet, but Julie does shoot it a look, and there's ominous music and the camera angle. I think that so far the camera work and editing really really work for yeah, really the whole thing, but maybe especially the horror. But yeah, and Sister Gabrielle is talking to the father, and it's like, oh, he's on his way, and Damon shows up late because of traffic, and the yeah, Damon walks in, and there's the thing about, so this is, I really don't care, which yeah, fair enough. I might be pretty miffed if my son was shitting on the floor and smearing it on the walls. And yeah, so Damon, I need the restroom, and then, oh, this isn't holy water. This is tap water. So yeah, the kid was just performing, and yeah, they also do a good job of that again. If you're doing horror today, you don't have to, like, well, obviously you have to be careful not to, like, undermine it, but it might be a good idea to subvert expectations. We think there's gonna be a big exorcism scene there, and yeah, it's revealed, no, a bunch of the time it's just cons, which again helps them get away with saying, oh, no, demons do exist, and sometimes exorcism is necessary, kind of thing, because no, certainly some of the time it's cons or schizophrenia. It's and the scene doesn't really undermine the horror, it just changes the nature of it, because we find out, no, it's Damon that is the scary, dangerous one. Let's see. Yeah, the showing what's written on the wall. It's, yeah. Let's see. There's one of the things he wrote is "Die asshole." 666 burn in hell, stuff like that. So yeah. And he also acknowledges, today, like, we know so much about exorcisms. That plays into the con thing, and also acknowledges, it's like telling the audience, yes, we know this, we're not going to do exorcism stuff that's the same as, like, 50 years, yeah, almost 50 years ago, like the original The Exorcist and such. Back then, like, to be fair, that movie does also acknowledge, well, not everybody still believes, but yeah, some of the stuff that's in that movie, like he says, now tropes. I acknowledge that movie is effective. Yeah, I think that brings us to, so I also think, so far at least, the child actors are doing a good job. That's, I've said in other videos, I think right now we are experiencing a golden age of child actors and teen actors. They are really really talented. There was a while where Hollywood really struggled to find actors who, which I am one of those people who say maybe children shouldn't act, or at least they shouldn't be celebrities. That's not healthy for the they should have a normal childhood and teenage years. I'm not sure we should have celebrities at all, but if we're gonna have them, I don't think kids should be celebrities. Um, it's important that they have normal development socially and such, and get an education and such, and then yeah, sure, they can act, but they should have something to fall back on. We've seen a number of times child actors, yeah, that doesn't, a lot of the time doesn't go well. Um, but yeah, whether he's playing possessed or dispossessed or repossessed, the kid is, the asshole son does, and yeah, he tries to punch Damon, and Damon doesn't even have to raise his hand. He just like, so clearly there's some like telekinesis going on there, from him and Mrs. Helstrom. Um, yeah, and both. Or wait, is it only Anna who can like read off? I'm slightly unclear on if he. I guess he was just testing the kid with the, because if it wasn't like, he could still defend himself, but he might have to bring out the big guns. But he felt confident that this was just the yeah. Um, but yeah, then we yeah, and he like, there's, he makes fire circle around them, so pyrokinesis as well, and yeah, that's a good way to show, because like up to that point it just seemed like he was jaded. Like, I had some idea because I've read a bunch of reviews of it, but the first time people watched this, if they didn't know the character, or they weren't sure if the character was going to be comic book accurate, and I also don't know if it is comic book accurate, but yeah, that's another thing. I have an idea of who the father might be. I'm not gonna say it before the show does, but yeah. Um, yeah, and it's the thing of like, he's scaring the kids straight, which, not a big fan of that trope, but I will acknowledge sometimes it is, like, a lot of the time it's not the right approach at all. And he does say, they need counseling. So I really do appreciate that. It's not just this thing of like, oh, you just gotta tell them to be good and they're gonna be good. This silly idea that a bunch of conservatives have. That's not how psychology works. They're probably acting out because of something. And it does also, like, what was it? He says something like, lay off the vodka, so yeah, the kid's acting out because one or both parents, like, functioning, or maybe not even functioning, but alcoholic, function or otherwise, and that is a thing. That's something that happens in real life. So I really appreciate them acknowledging that. I think the next scene might have been the Anna's introduction, and yeah, I am I really like her so far. Just, you know, they do such a good job introducing her, because like immediately the way she walks, this confident stride, and the way that the camera follows her and passes everyone else, the camera never stops to look at anyone else in that introduction tracking shot, I mean. And people walk up to her and like, oh, you this is, oh, no, never mind, I'll it can wait, so she's important. She doesn't treat others with a ton of respect, immediately. These are things that we should know about her from right away, clearly. And yeah, you have the thing about, yeah, he's gonna, buy this weapon, and I guess the implication is he's gonna kill someone with it. That's, or is it just that he likes having weapons around? He knew that it had been used to kill not only men, but the women and the children. And he gets off on that, and he tries in vain to hide that. He's like, oh, I don't know if I like this. And she's like, no, we both know you do. And I do also, yeah, and you have the thing about, yeah, she approaches him after he buys it, and the yeah, conversation, and yeah, she does the like, she puts her hand on him, and she like makes him. Oh wait, I guess was she reading? No, I'm actually no. Yeah, she says I can't read anything off this, and that surprised her. So she must have the ability to read, to like. I don't know if that qualifies as telepathy, but yeah, she can. When there's something supernatural, at least she can usually get a thing off it. Yeah, the she confronts him about having killed 7 people, and then makes him fall off the building, and yeah, it is that thing of like does that count as an accident kill? I think it's. I'm still early in Hitman 2016, so I'm slightly unsure of if someone sees it or if someone finds the body afterwards, if it still counts as an accident kill. Anyway, but yeah, the other guy points out, it's hell cleaning up after you. But yeah, we find out later in the episode, their father was a serial killer, the Helstrom siblings' father. Yeah, this is how she processes that. She's a killer of killers. So glad I finally watched that. And Damon, teaches and tries to, we only hear part of one lecture, but yeah, they do that Hollywood thing where it is related to, so we have that thing about the small child burns themselves, and then later there's the reward, and we realize, oh, that in his childhood there was maybe more burning than reward, if any reward at all, and that's why he is the way he is. So and it also feels like an actual lecture. um Actually, I think, was that the very next scene? Let's go with that. So yeah, Julie approaches, and he does like pause, but he does apparently also finish the yeah. And yeah, the note of, isn't it interesting that the stick comes before the carrot? And I feel like that is probably something we're meant to take as like a theme, something that the show is going to explore. What happens to someone where the stick outweighs the carrot, comes first, that sort of thing. The kid pretends to be possessed. Damon and Anna are both very harsh with other people, and Anna straight up went around, she's a serial killer who serial kills serial killers. And I'm not talking about Cheerios. I suppose maybe if she was gonna serial kill a British serial killer, she might say Cheerio. I think, does that yeah, Julie brings him up to date on yeah, and he goes to talk to his mother, and at first she's just lying stock still. She is one of the best, gives one of the best performances in this. Yeah, just like catatonic essentially, and he tells her a memory he has from childhood, that of both of them, of her taking care of him. So the carrot, both the he in the story, she provided the carrot for him, and he's providing the carrot for her by retelling the story to get her lucid, so she can help him with the yeah. And yeah, because it's a demon, and again, this can be confused for mental illness. He's confused for mental illness in real life. She talks about that he was unwanted. This idea of like demons being cruel. My favorite depiction of that does remain the Evil Dead franchise. But it's it's a trope. It's in a lot of these exorcism stories that say that exorcism is sometimes necessary. But yeah, he does get some, a little bit of information, and I think that brings us to, yeah, so the he is so rude that Sister Gabrielle ends up saying, I don't know if you're being disrespect is if it's me or the cloth that you're disrespecting, but I don't care for it. And he does end up apologizing, which is also a good way to show, yeah, he does have, he told the kid, real power comes from your heart and your mind. um and he does have something of a heart, it's just buried pretty deep. And that's also something that we want to know, that there is, he can be reached, there is something there that, yeah. And he, let's see, I guess that might cover that chunk of the episode. Let's see. So she says, are you going to mansplain my my job to me, or something like that, and I'm not one of those people who like get really offended that, oh, someone used the term mansplain. No, mansplaining is a thing, and it's very detrimental. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know enough about the show yet to say if it's genuine. I do know enough about Disney to say that, well, let's see. Was this one of the ones? Did they have much of a hand in this? It's made by a corporation. There's a lot of them that don't really believe in progressive values. That's the kind of stuff you are more likely to find in independent. So, yeah, movies and such, short films and the like. Um, and stuff where, like, okay, this is actually the writer director's vision, it's not the corporation dictating. And with this, I don't know yet. I hope that it is genuine. I'll pay close attention to upcoming episodes to see if it feels genuine, but I'm a little worried that it's there to say, don't worry, progressives, there's something here for you too. Because like a lot of this exorcism stuff appeals more to conservatives, who are more likely to believe, obviously you don't have to be conservative to be Christian. Conservative Christians are the, the ones that have a lot of power and influence in, for example, America, can be extremely harmful. Take away civil rights, and they spent decades working to get get Roe v. Wade overturned, and they succeeded, and now women are being treated just, as if all they are is a body capable of becoming pregnant, carrying to term, and even if they're, you know, there was that case where a woman was kept on life support because the baby was still, even though she was, they would have pulled the plug on her if not for this law. Um, just imagine, being that kid, growing up, finding out, oh, by the way, while you were in the womb, your mother was on life support, even though she, shouldn't have been. Like, yeah. Anyway, you don't have to be conservative to be Christian, but Christians who are not conservative are less likely to believe in exorcism today, in 2020 when this came out. I think the next thing was Anna talking. We find out. She talks to the guy who helps clean up her mess. Shit happens. Well, I have to clean up that shit. And the, which like technically, if you in Hitman 2016, if you wait long enough, they will like, drag off the body. But the once discovered, I mean, which actually that's very cool. They've been I think it was the second one, the first that had that. It was you know. Anyway, we're gonna move on. Yeah, it's revealed that she is, if not lesbian, at least bi or pan, and she has very casual sex. She had a one night stand with a girl who she doesn't remember the name of, and it's one of those things. It's important to note. Obviously, when women engage in sex with other women, it doesn't mean that it's inherently inferior to sex with men. Um, the yeah. Um, so far, I don't think that that's like something they're saying so much as just this is a person who has casual sex. It's not the fact that she was with another woman that made it casual and not committal. Which yeah, it's this is a progressive channel. We support women's rights and women's wrongs, and they yeah, it's not right. And to be clear, it's not wrong to have casual sex, but it does seem like they're saying, it would be good if she got better at forming emotional attachments to people, which again, serial killer daddy, abusive, child abuse during her childhood. It makes sense, but the yeah, it's important to normalize that. Yeah, sometimes women have sex with other women. That's not a problem. The one thing when it comes to sex, the one thing to make sure is present is consent. As long as consent is given, and remember, it can be withdrawn at any point, and consent does not have to be verbal, but it should be enthusiastic. Yeah, at that point, yeah, yeah, I think I've made my point. So yeah, at that point, sex isn't wrong, regardless of is it not straight? Is it not monogamous? All that stuff. Not it's not inherently wrong, and we gotta normalize, because a lot of people find their happiness through those things. So many people were miserable back when it was, let's see. Rowan Ellis recently did a really excellent video about, let's see, I think it was called The Unbearable Loneliness of Aromantics. And yeah, she talked about, well, it used to be that marriage was just a contract. It was just financial. People would prefer the company of their friends, their including same gender friends, to their married partner. Yes, the let's see. Yeah, we have the thing about she's ignoring texts and such. I sent you seven, or you've gotten 7 texts. Yeah, and they've all been ignored. Which so later when Damon she leaves him on red. I think that maybe brings us to, let's see. Then we have the what was the next scene? I guess let's go with the yeah, we have the let's see. Yeah, Damon, it's very interestingly done, because it looks like the room is full of students, and he like maybe should be giving a lecture or something, but instead he's just drawing the same symbol over and over, which, like, okay, I mean, you're getting pretty good at it, but I think maybe practice your drawing skills at a later time. These people paid to be here, but then, you know, the paper catches fire, and then we see the room is empty other than him, you know. So again, there's some kind of supernatural, yeah. There's a difference between perception and reality there. And he shows the symbol to Julie, and she, you know, yeah, and they note it's what was it? Consumption, you know, tuberculosis, and she's coughing up blood, and yeah, the so yes, we have Anna going to the uh, grave, the cemetery, and yeah, really good job on the if I wore a hat, it would come off to the you know, the special effects people who took care of the, yeah, very, very nicely done on that. You know, yeah, they straight melted and lost that smolder, and yeah, it looks like it used to be a human being or two human beings. It wait, shit, was that the what? Yeah, I'm slightly unclear on. No, I think I get. Never mind. It was at least one person originally, and it looks nasty. And there's the thing about, oh, it smells like sulfur. I bet it does. And yeah, she can't get a read off the body itself, so she takes the head, keepsake, for her to keep. And yeah, I like the thing about, you know, it's like a keeper. It's a demon. It's someone who prevents the especially dangerous demons from getting out. So yeah, sounds like a big, and that's also, you know, for something like this, you gotta have. It can't just be case of the week. It needs to be like, okay, this is big, you know, because you have to get the Hellstroms putting the band back together. And the let's see, that was all right. Yeah, that was the scene I missed. That really, really cool when we see, you know, they go up against the you know, so you have the nurse and the two mental health patients there, and you know, one of them like knocks him into the thing, so that there's like blood from his forehead, and then it gets on the thing, and then the thing grabs him and starts like just, yeah, consuming him, melting him. Really, really nicely done on that. And not too much later, we see her, you know, trying to get something off the skull. She cuts her thumb, which I guess means she might need to prove to someone else what she already knows. And you know, gets the blood on there, and at first doesn't really get anything, but then the eye pops out. Very nicely done, and good job on not making it like comical, like because when I think an eye popping out like that, my first thought is Evil Dead, you know, franchise. So I'm not giving away exactly which of them, but if you know, you know. Yeah. And later we see the guy whose eye it was. And yeah, we see the guy burying and then finding the little strip of, you know, with the name on, which is of course how, you know, she ends up knowing to talk to Damon about the, yeah. I think that pretty well brings us up to the let's see, yeah, Damon apologizing on the phone, and he did, you know, there's a little bit of classic politician's apology. I'm sorry if you were offended. But yeah, and you have the thing about, you know, well, if he keeps sinning and he keeps apologizing, you have to forgive him. Well, Luke never met Damon. Which again, you know, I think they're doing a good job with, you know, you gotta have a little bit of a casual. If every single time they bring up, you know, Christianity, if it's always treated with extreme reverence, it's going to turn a lot of viewers today off. So yeah, you have that little joke of like, well, because like Luke, apostle, I want to say, that it's one of the people who wrote some of the Bible, and to say, oh well, he never meant this guy, yeah, there's a lot of conservative Christians who would perceive it as disrespectful, and the show isn't made for them, or at least not entirely for them. Um, there's there's already a lot of stuff in Marvel that would turn them off. So, I think, does that bring us to the yes. So I thought it worked well, as it is like, it's not quite an action scene, but it's also not an action show, at least not so far. For like horror, it works well as a climax that, because like we know immediately, oh, it's a terrible idea for Sister Gabrielle to go in there. It's that thing of, she lacks experience. She doesn't yet know well enough, okay, this is something to be extremely careful about. This is something to be less careful about. And she did just kind of fuck up, like he had to spend a lot of time in traffic getting to a kid that's just a con artist. I mean, essentially what Damon did with the kid, like hypothetically, she could have, like, if she knew, if she had enough experience, she might herself have, been like, oh, at least one of the parents have been drinking a lot, and then suddenly the kid is swearing a lot and speaking Latin, which he didn't before, and behaving in a really way. Let's test it. Let's use some tap water, and like, okay, if the kid tried to like hit her, then there might be, yeah. At that point, you might need, maybe, let's see, maybe if the father was present, he could like restrain the kid or something until she talks him down. But it didn't need superpowers, yeah. And he does mention, hey, I'm supposed to be, what was it, preparing a lecture or something like that. But the yeah, good build up to the idea. And it's one of those things. Maybe after this episode, Sister Gabrielle is going to be more careful, but like serve as, an extra, well, not just an extra set of eyes, a different perspective from the Hellstroms. And yeah, I hope she's not just a character that other characters explain shit to. So far, they haven't done too terrible on her being the only one for that. There's a little bit of that, sure, but there's also other characters that, so it's spread out more. That's a necessary thing by this point, when there's so much to explain. Like Anna explains. There's some explanation during the scene. Wait, was he the one or was she the one? But the guy who like helps her with the cemetery. There's the other guy who, the auction. The guy who's also at the auction helping her. There's some exposition there. Just, yeah. And I think, yes. So we have the thing of well, let's see. Was there anything else? I appreciate that by the end of this episode, Anna is already approaching Damon. And she is not happy about, the thing about, I'm not going to repeat the exact words, but she says, tell me that she is dead. And let's see. I think, does that bring us to, let's see. But yeah, the entire thing, as soon as Sister Gabrielle comes in, like immediately, like we don't have the catatonic thing. She just gets up and says, interesting, fresh meat. And, yeah, she, like, Sister Gabrielle is clearly out of her depth here. And Julie realizes and talks to the guard, sees the security footage to find out where she went, because they don't know until, and Damon runs in, and you know, yeah, pretty cool. You know, people being telekinetically thrown against walls. I thought they did a good job on that. It's one of those things. I can imagine that they didn't have the budget for some of the bigger stuff that I can imagine the comic characters do. But so far, you know, yeah, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, because like throwing an actor against a wall, it's wire rig. You know, if you've got the time and budget for it, you can. You know, today you can do that. You couldn't always, obviously, but and the bit where the boy tries to punch him and then can't quite. That's acting. He's acting like, oh, why can't my fist go past this point? Those are not the most expensive of special effects. That was there for the first chunk, maybe the first season essentially of Cloak and Dagger. They definitely do run into the fact that hypothetically these special effects could be expensive, so let's not use them too much, or let's have like a fairly easy, straightforward use of them that doesn't strain the budget, meager as it is. I think that might just about cover. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, right. Yes, I definitely got to talk briefly about. So yeah. Pretty cool with very cool. It's one of the last things we see. The trucker walks past. Like looks off to the side. Like, Jesus Christ, did Superman fuck up that guy's truck? That doesn't seem very in character. Maybe in 12 years we'll get a better, more accurate Superman. He gets into his truck and he's like, get out of him, get off my truck. And yeah, the guy is short, one eye, because that's in the skull, and I guess eats the trucker. Certainly kills him. I feel pretty confident about that, or maybe some kind of possession or something. But yeah, I want the Hellstroms to find the possessed there, find out what possessed him to do that, and hopefully be able to stop the demon before it's too late. It's one of those things. I will say, this kind of exorcism narrative does lend itself well to the episodic thing, because like, as long as you drip feed the mystery and each episode has some supernatural horror, yeah, you can spend a while, like maybe, okay, so now like, I guess the demon has a body, but maybe that body needs to consume other human bodies to sustain itself. And it's like, because like it didn't look, the part of the face was missing. It's clearly not in the best of conditions right now. Maybe it's one of those Hellraiser deals where they gotta, you gotta bring your own skin. I don't know. Find it. I get that it's obviously very frustrating that the warden took all your loose skin. You had like boxes and boxes of it, and he just took it somewhere.